The U.S. fencing market is worth $9.8 billion in 2025. The average wood privacy fence costs $3,000 to $7,000 to install. It lasts 10 to 15 years. Then you replace it. Over a 40-year mortgage period, a homeowner will replace that fence 2 to 3 times. Total lifetime cost, $9,000 to $21,000. A row of 10 bare-root elderberry bushes costs $50. Installation requires a shovel and an afternoon. The row reaches full screening height in 3 years and begins producing 12 to 15 pounds of fruit per plant per year. Over the same 40-year period, it produces approximately 5,000 to 6,000 pounds of fruit, requires zero replacement, and increases soil carbon by 40%. The oldest documented hedgerows in England are over 900 years old. The wood fence industry is not threatened by a competitor. It is threatened by a plant that does not need to be purchased twice. In most HOA-governed communities, the plant is banned. The fence is required. The fine for choosing the plant over the fence can run $100 per day. $9.8 billion depends on that rule staying in place. This is the story of a living boundary that blocks wind, produces food, shelters wildlife, locks carbon into the ground, and gets stronger every year instead of rotting. It existed for over 1,000 years on every inhabited continent. Then it was replaced by manufactured lumber, and now it is illegal in a third of American neighborhoods. The concept is not new. Before there were fence posts, there were hedgerows. In England, between 1750 and 1850, a period known as the Enclosure Acts, Parliament ordered the division of common land into private holdings. Landowners needed boundaries. Wood was scarce. Wire had not been invented, so they planted hedges. Over that 100-year window, an estimated 200,000 miles of hedgerow were planted across England, mostly hawthorn and blackthorn. That number comes from the historian Oliver Rackham, whose work is archived by the Overseas Development Institute. Some of those hedges are still alive. A quarter of Devon's hedgerows are believed to be over 800 years old. The oldest confirmed hedge in Bristol was dated at approximately 800 years. The Woodland Trust reports that the oldest documented hedgerow in the United Kingdom exceeds 900 years. A wood fence installed today will be in a landfill before your mortgage is paid off. A hedge planted today could still be standing when your great-grandchildren are born. Across the Atlantic, American settlers faced the same problem. On the open prairies of the Midwest, there was not enough timber to build fences. In the 1840s and 1850s, they turned to a native tree called Osage orange Maclura pomifera. Entrepreneurs offered to plant and maintain Osage orange hedges at $100 per mile, making it the cheapest fencing available. The hedges grew dense and thorny. Settlers described them as horse-high, bull-strong, and hog-tight. That phrase meant the hedge was tall enough that a horse would not jump it, stout enough that a bull would not push through it, and woven so tightly that even a hog could not squeeze between the branches. According to a JSTOR published study, roughly 60,000 miles of Osage orange hedge were planted around 22,000 quarter-section farms. Then, in 1873, Joseph Glidden of DeKalb, Illinois, patented barbed wire. Within a decade, the living fences were being ripped out. The hedges that remained were left untended and eventually grew into the gnarled tree lines you still see along Midwestern property boundaries today. The function was abandoned. The knowledge was lost. Now, let us talk about what a modern edible hedge actually is and what it does. An edible hedge, sometimes called a fedge in the permaculture community, is a boundary planting composed of fruit-bearing or nut-bearing shrubs. The most common species used in temperate North America include American elderberry, which is Sambucus canadensis, highbush blueberry, vaccinium, American hazelnut, Corylus americana, blackberry, rubus species, and rugosa rose, which produces rose hips. Each of these species grows into a dense, multi-stemmed shrub that provides visual screening, wind reduction, and food production. Let us start with elderberry, because the numbers are the most dramatic. A bare-root elderberry plant costs $3 to $5 from most native nurseries. It grows at a rate of 2 to 3 feet per year in good conditions. According to Prairie Nursery, by year 3, it reaches 6 to 8 feet. By year 5, it can exceed 10 feet in southern regions, according to River Hills Harvest. The University of Missouri Extension reports that mature elderberry plantings yield 2 to 4 tons per acre for a single bush in a home garden. That translates to roughly 12 to 15 pounds of fruit per year, with some individual plants producing as much as 20 pounds in optimal conditions. A University of California Davis field assessment recorded individual shrubs yielding over 120 pounds in a single season, though those were mature specimens in ideal riparian conditions. Plant 10 elderberry bushes at 4-foot spacing, and you have a 40-foot living wall producing 120 to 150 pounds of fruit per year. The elderberry supplement market alone is projected to reach $1.45 billion by 2025. According to Future Market Insights, the fruit you are growing on your property line is the same fruit being sold in capsule form at $30 to $40 per bottle. Now add blueberry to the mix. Iowa State University Extension reports that a mature highbush blueberry bush produces 5 to 10 pounds of fruit per year. North Carolina State Extension puts the upper range at 25 pounds for rabbit-eye varieties. Penn State Extension documented that an established blueberry planting can produce fruit for 50 years or more. 50 years from a single planting, a wood fence cannot last 15. Hazelnut adds a different dimension. It produces 2 to 3 pounds of in-shell nuts per bush after year 5, according to the Midwest Hazelnut Consortium. It grows 8 to 12 feet tall and forms a dense canopy. Blackberry produces heavily along arching canes and creates a thorny barrier that no animal or trespasser will casually walk through. Rugosa rose produces vitamin C-rich rosehips and grows into an impenetrable thicket. Mix these species along a property line, and you have a boundary that is taller than a standard 6-foot privacy fence, denser than any board-on-board construction, and productive in ways that lumber will never be. Now let us talk about wind. The USDA National Agroforestry Center published Agroforestry Note 36 in 2007, documenting windbreak density and wind speed reduction. A dense windbreak with greater than 60% optical density reduces wind speed by 60 to 80% within a zone of 1 to 5 times the windbreak height on the leeward side. A mature elderberry or hazelnut hedge at 8 to 12 feet tall with full canopy provides this level of density. That means a 10-foot hedge reduces wind speed over a protected zone extending 30 to 50 feet downwind. This is not a decorative effect. This is measurable microclimate modification. Reduced wind means less moisture loss from soil. It means less physical stress on adjacent garden plants. It means lower heating costs for nearby structures. A University of Nebraska Extension publication estimated that properly designed farmstead windbreaks can reduce home heating energy consumption by 10 to 25%. A hedge on your property boundary is not just a fence. It is passive climate control. Now go below the surface. In February 2025, the University of Leeds published a study confirming that hedgerows increase soil carbon storage by approximately 40% compared to adjacent grassland. This is not a marginal effect. It represents a significant transfer of atmospheric carbon into stable soil organic matter. The study found this result was consistent regardless of geographic location within the study area, meaning the carbon benefit is not limited to specific soil types or climates. A separate meta-analysis published by researchers affiliated with the Thunon Institute in Germany found that hedgerows on cropland edges stored 32% more soil organic carbon than adjacent fields, with the effect extending several meters laterally from the hedge base. Your fence does not sequester carbon. It is made of carbon that was sequestered by a tree, milled into lumber, and is now slowly releasing that carbon back into the atmosphere as it decomposes. Now go above the canopy. The UK Biodiversity Action Plan identified 130 priority species closely associated with hedgerow habitat. The Heart of England Forest reports that hedgerows support 80% of woodland bird species, 50% of native mammals, and 30% of butterfly species in hedgerow-rich landscapes. A 2013 study published in the journal Ecological Applications found that hedgerow restorations in California acted as net exporters of native bees into adjacent agricultural fields, meaning the hedge did not simply attract pollinators, but actively increased pollinator populations in surrounding areas. A wood fence supports 0 species. It provides no nesting habitat, it does not flower, it does not fruit. It connects nothing to nothing. A hedge is a corridor. It links isolated patches of habitat across a suburban landscape that has been fragmented by roads, parking lots, and lawns. Every hedge planted on a property line is a bridge between ecosystems. Now, Let us talk about why this is banned. There are over 373,000 homeowners associations in the United States. Approximately 78 million Americans, roughly 1 in 4, live in HOA-governed communities. That number comes from the Community Associations Institute. In 2023, 65% of all new single-family homes started were built within HOA jurisdictions. According to U.S. Census data reported by Newsweek, the HOA model is expanding, and with it, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that govern what homeowners can plant on their own property. Most HOA covenants include restrictions on hedge height, typically 4 to 6 feet. Many ban fruit trees or edible plantings in front yards. Some classify any plant that drops fruit as a nuisance. Fines for landscaping violations range from $50 to $250 per violation per month, according to Homes and Gardens. Food Renegade documented a case where a homeowner faced $100 per day in fines for refusing to remove edible plants. In 2019, Florida passed Statute 604.71 prohibiting local governments from banning vegetable gardens on residential properties. But the law explicitly does not override HOA covenants. A 2022 Civil Eats investigation confirmed that only 2 states, Florida and Illinois, have any right to garden legislation on the books, and even those laws have significant loopholes for HOA enforcement. This means that a homeowner who replaces a rotting wood fence with an elderberry hedge that produces 150 pounds of fruit per year, blocks 80% of wind, increases soil carbon by 40%, and supports over 100 wildlife species can be fined, liened, and taken to court for improving their property in a way that the covenant does not permit. The wood fence that does one thing, costs thousands, and rots in 15 years is compliant. The living hedge that does 5 things, costs $50, and lasts centuries is a violation. That is not a landscaping rule. That is an economic protection. Now let us talk about how to do it anyway. If your HOA restricts hedge height, plant blueberry. It stays under 6 feet naturally. It looks ornamental. It produces 5 to 10 pounds of fruit per bush per year for 50 years. Most covenant enforcement officers do not know what a blueberry bush looks like. It passes visual inspection as decorative landscaping. If your HOA allows backyard hedges but restricts the front, plant elderberry and hazelnut along your rear and side boundaries. Elderberry reaches full screening height in 3 years. Hazelnut fills in more slowly, but provides a denser, long-term canopy plus nut production. If you are outside HOA jurisdiction, plant the full mix. Elderberry for height and fast screening. Blueberry for low edging and long-term fruit. Hazelnut for nuts and wind resistance. Blackberry for impenetrable thorny barriers. Rugosa rose for rose hips and pollinator support. Space plants 3 to 4 feet apart within the row. Stagger 2 rows 18 inches apart for maximum density. Water deeply during the first 2 summers. Mulch with wood chips. By year 3, you will have a functional screen. By year 5, you will have a productive food hedge. By year 10, you will wonder why anyone builds a fence. The planting method is straightforward. Dig a hole twice the width of the root ball and the same depth. Place the bare root plant so the crown sits at soil level. Backfill with native soil, water thoroughly, mulch 3 to 4 inches deep in a circle around the base, keeping mulch away from the stem. Repeat every 3 to 4 feet along the boundary line. Total time for 10 plants, approximately 2 hours. Total cost for 10 bare root plants, approximately $30 to $60 depending on species and supplier. Compare that to a fence installation. A contractor brings a crew, augers post holes 3 feet deep, sets 4x4 posts in concrete, nails 6-foot boards, and finishes in 1 to 2 days. The bill arrives at $3,000 to $7,000. 15 years later, you do it again and again. The hedge asks for 1 afternoon and a shovel. Then it works for you for the rest of your life. Let us return to the numbers one final time. $9.8 billion in U.S. fencing revenue, $36.5 billion globally. 373,000 HOAs enforcing covenants that favor manufactured fencing. 78 million Americans living under those covenants, $100 per day in potential fines for planting the alternative. Against that, a $5 bare root elderberry plant, 12 to 15 pounds of fruit per year. 80% wind reduction, 40% more soil carbon, 50 plus years of productive life, 130 priority wildlife species supported, and 900 years of documented survival in the English countryside. The living fence was not replaced because it failed. It was replaced because it could not be sold twice. Barbed wire replaced Osage orange in 1873. Lumber panels replaced hedgerows across suburban America in the 20th century. HOA covenants now enforce the replacement by making the original illegal. But seeds do not read covenants. Elderberry does not recognize a lien, and a hedge planted today on the back boundary of a quarter-acre lot will still be producing fruit. Blocking wind and sheltering birds long after the last wood fence on the street has been hauled to the landfill for the third time. 1 shovel, 10 plants, $50. That is the entire cost of opting out of a $9.8 billion industry. The only rule you have to break is the one that says your boundary has to rot.